Шановні колеги, ми продовжуємо робочий день.
Dear colleagues, we continue our work and our current press conference doing business. The result on season, we have Oleksiy Goncharuk, head of the efficient reform office, and Dmytro Romanovich, project manager. Good afternoon, dear friends. We are going to describe what are the results of the reforming season, which reflected on in the doing business rating. For Ukraine, it is of special importance, doing business rating, because each position here influences the position of Ukraine as investment destination. This is on the one hand. On the other hand, this rating is a stable agenda for all the governments, which all the governments in Ukraine, they declare their intention to strengthen to improve Ukraine's position in doing business rating. This means that all the governments, respectively, of their activities, they have strong intention to improve Ukraine's position. So the rating comprises 10 different indicators. It covers construction, the simplicity of opening business, the simplicity of accreditation, of business accreditation, the density of electric grids, etc. The rating is calculated. Its specificity is that each country has the period for improvement, that those positive changes could be taken into account for the next year rating, and we have just several days in May to improve our rating, but taking into account the agenda in Verkhovna Rada, we may come to conclusion that the work carried out during last year could be already summarized. So the last year, the previous Minister of Trade and Economic Development stated that his objective was to reach the top 50 countries in doing business rating, to make Ukraine the good investment destination. Now we should state that this objective was not reached, and not just this year, but for the next year, this target will remain not gained. And the predictions of our office is at the level of 10 or maybe up to 13 positions above. During the next several months, Ukraine has to work jointly with the IMF specialists, with the doing business rating specialists, to evaluate the actions which were carried out by Ukraine during the last year. Why do we think that we can go up by 13 positions? I think that the law on protection of minority shareholders We have improved the situation with the single social tax payments. Um, Also, in a couple of minutes, my colleague Dmytro Romanovich will explain more technical things, while I would like to say that this rating of doing business should not be taken as the target per se. The objective of reforms is to implement the best regulatory practices. Unfortunately, we did not manage to do many things. In December, the Cabinet of Ministers, jointly with our office, has designed the draft roadmap for Ukraine based on best global practices. We had developed more than 20 draft laws which were entered to the parliament, but which are not under parliamentary scrutiny. Dmytro would share the information about this issue.
Dmytro Romanovich, the project manager of the regulation at the National Council of Reforms. The previous minister declared very ambitious goal to get to top 50 doing business and top 20 next year. And thanks to the Office of Effective Regulation, the roadmap was developed and an active work on implementation of this plan started now in the parliament. There are 13 drafts registered, and additionally they are registering about 10 more. That is a good work which has been done by the Office of Effective Regulation and other stakeholders. There's the draft law of the President of the Cabinet of Ministers. There are all the prerequisites to become top 50, but the situation is such that the Parliament, the rating doing business and these drafts are not in the focus of attention of the Parliament. They either are not included into the agenda of the Parliament, and that is not just about doing business rating, but other economic and deregulation drafts. The economic bloc is not passed quickly by the Parliament, and that's quite a hurting issue now when Ukraine needs reforms to implement the DFTA requirements. I hope that in May or June we will manage to organize the National Council of Reforms. The Cabinet of Ministers plan will be also implemented, and maybe in such a format we will manage to agree on fruitful cooperation between all the authorities. I also would like to add and to repeat what Oleksiy has mentioned, that the rating is not the goal in itself. We recognize that that is important, but what is more important is to implement the changes. The draft on bankruptcy 3231, if I'm not mistaken, for 11 times it was included into the agenda of the Verkhovna Rada, but they have never considered that our task is to speed up the process. We publicly address the representatives of the civil society so that they help us to push forward this economic agenda in the parliament, and I hope that next year we will get a good result. One more thing I would like to mention, doing business plan is a line in the plan of actions of the Cabinet of Ministers, and it's a good sign that deregulation, doing business are priorities for the government now. We hope that we'll manage to do it next year, at least. I would like to add a few more words. It would be probably wrong not to mention our colleagues who work together with the experts, with the Cabinet of Ministers, with the office on promoting the drafts. And these are the colleagues, the experts from the Easy Business organization. They did a lot, and they worked together with the Ministry of Finance, with the Ministry of Justice. They drafted many drafts which are directed towards implementing the best practices, and other experts as well. They also work together with us. This is a huge work that we have to do all together, and we believe that if we communicate this need to introduce the best practices in Ukraine, altogether we have more chances not just to receive some nice figures, but in order to simplify life for business in Ukraine. Starting from tomorrow, the office, with the participation of some NGOs, will start a communication campaign in the regions. Will travel to different regions and will try to communicate implementation of the best practices in Ukraine. We'll start with the Sumy, and there will be a roundtable dedicated to the issue of connecting to electricity grid, to understand and to communicate it easier, these difficult topics, because there are many drafts, many indicators, but we have especially done a page in the internet. Could you help us? That's what the rating looks like. There are 10 positions, registration of the companies, and so on and so forth. Taxes and others are among them. 10 indicators. If you, on top, there are drafts prepared by the office, and you can learn more about them. Also, if you look at some draft, you will see how it goes up in rating. You can see how this rating will influence the total result. We have the intention to add all the initiatives which are registered in the Parliament, and will be forecasting how they can influence the indicators and the rating, because we know how during the last several years there were some initiatives registered which had nothing to do with ratings. People were trying to just lobby something. This way, I'm not going to talk about whether such steps were successful or not, but this discredits the idea of implementing the best practices. We will send you all post-release where we will have the link, and there will be the link on our website. If you have any questions, we are ready to answer them. If you are ready to cooperate, we are also ready to react. Thank you.
Natalia Kushner, ABC News. My first question is to Oleksiy. The cabinet's resolution about bringing Ukraine higher in the rating was made in late December. Whether this had influenced the situation. It was not a resolution, it was an assignment. It was passed in December. It provided for 43 steps in this direction. Our assessment was that the reloading of the government caused that a step back in our movement forward, and the necessary draft laws were not passed because the government was at the stage of reloading. The new government, reloaded government, had no time to push up the new package of legislation necessary for the passage for improving Ukraine's position in the doing business rating. This actually explains why we do not have the result which we wished to and expected to reach. Actually, what we discussed today is our prediction of the future results in doing business. The new government had declared the need and its readiness to work in the same direction. New Minister of Trade and Industrial Policy, Mr. Kubev, not just declared this his intention to work in this direction. He preserved the previous team in the ministry, and we expect that the ministry. We expect he will continue this policy. The Ministry of Justice had not changed its team. They remain committed to these policies. For the Ministry of Finance, we do not know exactly, but at least Ms. Svetlana Merkalova remained in her position, so we may expect that the Ministry of Finance will continue to follow this course. And actually, we believe that the improvements will be done by the Ministry of Finance, especially as to the single tax payment calculation. Oleksiy, you mentioned that next week you will go into a trip around Ukraine. Whether you have received any invitations from the regions, what do they comment on the doing business rating, if there are any comments, etc. We continuously maintain ties with businesses, including regional businesses, and I should say that local businesses are very concerned about business developments in the country. Of course, doing business is influential rating. That's a good idea. The agenda of improving in doing business is an important aspect of each government's work. But despite all this good things. The businesses and businessmen are interested in concrete things, in concrete actions which happen at the local, at the regional level. That's why one of the aims of our trip will to see, to analyze how the recommendations of the World Bank are implemented at regional level. What is important to understand, the World Bank rating provides not for the passage of the laws. It also takes into account the degree of implementation of those laws. For example, connection to the electric grids. They doing their rating, they would analyze the statements coming from Ivano-Frankivsk, from Chernigiv, from Odessa, bring them together. While those statements might be different, and of course, rating won't take into consideration all those differences between the regions of Ukraine. Oleksiy, I would like to correct you that mainly doing business takes the capital cities of the countries, but for some economies they take into consideration some other important cities within the nation, but usually these are capital cities. The regions. Saying the regions, we should clearly understand whom do we mean under this word. There are businesses in Ukraine who are not happy with electric connection to the grid, who are not happy with the regulation requirements, and from business we feel a lot of support from them. When we say the regions, meaning local administrations, they are not so happy and they're not so much concerned about the regulation. And not always administration in the regions is keen to take additional burden on it, on making steps towards regulation, etc. So today for the regions, it's more important to raise their competitiveness, to raise their attractiveness as an investment destination, and against the background of decentralization, this could produce a good effect on the country's economy, which finally will improve the general rating. Thank you very much, dear colleagues, and see you next time, dear colleagues. The next event will be at 12:30. Traditionally, we'll have panel